everywhere you go, you're going to take your thoughts, your feelings, your beliefs, your associations, your past, your memories, your identification with form, your identification as this body. You're going to take your slavery and try to find freedom.
It's like
it's closed, right?
It's closed. It's like set. It's like limited. It's like only what you know.
Been in a book somewhere, right?
That's exactly right. Somebody would have told me.
Just the idea that hey, you can do that for yourself, you know, and it's not going to interfere with your job or your wife or your family. Hello, my name is Richard Miller, and welcome to Never Not Here. This show is our way to take a fresh new look at the world, and maybe to find out more about life than we've ever imagined. So we want to find a key, if there is one, or at least get a hint to have the full experience of this vast and marvelous universe. Probably we're all pretty good at looking outwards. So, if there's more to life, maybe we're just standing right on top of it. In that case, it's our basic assumptions that have to be turned over and reworked. Because if we truly, truly believe something is dead obvious, well, isn't that the last place we're ever going to look? We'll never even check it out. So to help us today in our investigation, we have our guest who's made some fascinating breakthroughs into how simple and beautiful life already is. So please help me welcome Mr. John Sherman. Hello,
Richard.
Thanks for coming back.
You're more than welcome.
We just got started last time. We weren't able to get into the real. It's endless, right?
Core obviousness, as you call it, that is never questioned, is the belief that I am my life. And that's the one that needs to be questioned. That's the one that needs to be looked into. The rest of them are okay and are no trouble, but it's that one that needs to be seen.
So that's the beautiful hint that you can offer. You can give us because I can say for so many years it never crossed my mind to ever think that, well, what's the groundwork? What's bigger than my life that's part of me or that is me? And somehow it wasn't intuitive just to investigate that or to be with it.
Yeah, we start out these lives with a core assumption. The core assumption is that this is me, right? And it never quite fits, really. If you reflect on it, you'll see that it's never fits really comfortably, the idea that I am my life. I mean, I'm always in a frenzy of trying to do something about my life. Seems like if I were my life, I wouldn't be so concerned about fixing it or being this rather than that.
Doesn't seem all that stable, my life,
Does it?
No, it seems like, oh my God, the moment I just take my attention off of it, it's just going to, and it doesn't get that much better with age, I'll tell you. I mean, it even gets worse.
Well, sure, the end is near.
You start thinking like, this thing is disintegrating.
What was it we saw the other day? I think I was watching a movie or something, and one of the characters in the movie would say, I don't know much, but what I do know, I know. And the guy would ask him, what do you know? And he said, I know this. The end is near. And that, the longer you live, the more certain that is, and the more obvious it is how unstable it is, this life that you're putting all your trust and hope.
I think that can be totally a really valuable realization, because I would divide my life almost into two periods, and unfortunately not equal. And one period was like when I didn't know the end is near, and I thought, in other words, that I was immortal, and I did everything basically to kill myself. I mean, I did everything like exaggerating, drinking, smoking, activities that were dangerous, overexertions, undersleeping or under caring for myself. And then there was another period where I started to really get clear that the end is near, and I flipped totally, and now I do everything to stick myself back together. Unfortunately, I waited a pretty long time before I made my flip.
That wild time when you're young,
yeah.
And it really does seem like you're doing everything you could possibly do to put your life at risk, to make it stop, really.
It's a challenge. It's like I'm challenging my invulnerability.
it comes from a desire to prove something, really. To prove something that has to do with your essential nature. I mean, and it's an interesting twist here, because the younger you are, the closer you are to the certainty that you are not your life, that you are in fact alien to your life, or your life is alien to you.
Just doesn't fit, no matter how I wiggle and twist. No. I mean,
you know, and as we grow older, what we do is we make accommodation to the alienness of this life.
We got this bad suit, and
right.
we just kind of hold ourselves in a weird way.
Never suspecting that, and all of this is done somehow to come to grips with the reality of me, to settle this issue once and for all, to be finished with this whole really bizarre, dysfunctional relationship I have with this life. It starts out being, as you say, seems like I'm trying to do everything I can to destroy it, and then as I see that it can't be held onto anyway, I do everything I can to hold on to it. There is this bizarre and really inexplicable relationship with our lives that characterizes our suffering, really, our misery, our deep-seated sense that something's wrong, something's not right, something's not quite in sync, not quite harmonious.
Well, it's for
fit.
sure. You know, it just is. You know, it just always seems so risky that something it's just not right. You know, that I have to work this hard and that I have to be so attentive
and then die. My God, I have to go through all this and then I have to die.
I didn't really.
Who thought that up?
Very good. Anyhow, I didn't do a very good job. Anyhow, right? It's kind of like this is what they mean by angst.
Yeah. Right. Exactly. Existential anxiety. Exactly. And we could go on here for this show and the next show and the next show, talking about the unsatisfactoriness of life. You know, the Buddhists, the first noble truth of Buddhism is that life is suffering. But the word suffering, the word that we have translated as suffering, gives a much more melodramatic feel in English than it does in Pali, in which the word is dukkha, the root of which is a wheel that's off-center. So that if you're in a cart with a wheel that's off-center, it's never right. It's always like this.
Sometimes you go downhill,
right.
The other time
but
you
it's
go
always not right, right?
Yeah.
And that's the suffering that the Buddha spoke of, is
Just
that sense that it's just not right. Things aren't quite right. I mean, why should I have to work so hard? Why should I have to die? Why should I have to get sick? Why should I have to want what I can't have and not want what comes to me?
Ah, that's a real important one.
Yeah.
You know, that by telling us that definition of what the original language, what we call suffering, I think we've talked to a lot of people, because I think so many people have heard this message that we're talking about and saying, oh, they're all talking about suffering. I'm not as suffering.
Right, I'm
not on the
suffering.
golf course. Are you kidding me? I mean, take your suffering and go suffer, you know.
Yeah.
But we're really not talking about that. It's a mistranslation. It's a misunderstanding.
That's right. It's a misunderstanding.
And that drives so many people away, because it just thinks like, well, you know, we're sitting in a pot of soup and we're going to just cook.
So we could go on forever talking about the unsatisfactoriness of life. Really. I mean, it doesn't matter whether you are a king or a pauper, a saint or a sinner, the wealthiest man in the world or homeless on the streets of Chicago. Everybody knows that life kind of sucks. Everybody knows that.
It certainly has its ups and downs.
And it's what we mostly talk about. And it's even what we mostly talk about in religious and spiritual circles, how life sucks. In religious circles, we talk about it in order that we can understand that there's some hope of redemption and so forth. In spiritual circles, we talk about it because we think there's something we could do about life to make it not so sucky as it is. And we could talk about it until we're blue in the face. We could talk about it for the rest of this hour and to the rest of the other hours that we have to speak together. And it won't do a thing about resolving it. Nothing. There is nothing that has been said, done, suggested, given, or taken away that has had the slightest effect on the basic unsatisfactoriness of being a human being. Nothing. And we've been talking about it and whining about it and moaning about it for, how long have we been here? 10,000 years? 15,000 years? 50,000 years? To no avail. So the fresh in the sense of being free from stagnation, not in the sense of being new, because this insight has been offered to us for 3,000 years anyway. But the fresh realization comes from the possibility that maybe I'm not what I think I am. Maybe I'm not what I believe myself to be. Maybe I'm not what is so absolutely obvious to me. Maybe that's not true. Maybe it's not. And if it isn't, what am I? When that question arises for the first time in a human mind, it's the end of the game. What am I, really? The fact is that the question, what am I, is what has driven everything in our lives from the moment we were born. Every thought, every attempt to become something, every attempt to get rid of things, every attempt to hold on to things.
Trying to discover, well, how do I relate to that?
Is the work of creating an image of me. This is me, because I like this and I don't like that. Because I am a saint, or I love God, or I hate God. This is me. This is me. All these things that I do and don't do, want and don't want, and so forth, those are the contours of my face. This is me. And when the possibility arises for the first time in a human mind of actually directly looking to see what I am, it's stunning. It's unexpected. The possibility of doing that is unexpected.
That's such an enormous hint, because we've all just relegated that to the philosophers and said, well,
that's right.
It's all been, well, all these thoughts have been thunk.
That's right.
And
that's right.
It's not my, they would have told me if they found something.
That's
right. It would have been in a book somewhere, right? I would have.
That's exactly right. Somebody would have told me.
Just the idea that hey, you could do that for yourself,
That's
and
right.
it's not going to interfere with your job or your
That's
wife
right.
or your family or your, cutting the grass. You can do it. Doesn't interfere with anything, and just check it out. It's just an imitation, right?
And it's really true, right, that every thought that can be thunk has already been thunk. In fact, there's a philosopher here in the 20th century that saw that very clearly, and that's Ludwig Wittgenstein, who saw very clearly that everything that can be thunk has been thunk. That's it. There's nothing more to say about anything. And the rest is silence. That's the words of Wittgenstein. So it's true. And if somebody had figured it out, they would have told you by now. But nobody can figure out what you are. Nobody. Nobody can tell you what you are, and nobody can deny what you are. Nobody. There is no possibility of you discovering your reality, the reality of what you are, as a result of anything that I can convince you of sitting here with you, speaking to you like this, or anything that anybody can convince you of or show you as in a book where you read about it and say, oh, yes, that's what I am. I mean, you may get that, but it ain't the truth. It is an incontestable reality that only you can see you. Only you. I can
that's such wonderful news, because
It
like
is.
nobody can give me myself, and nobody can take me
That's
take it
right.
away from me either.
That's right. And if you reflect on it for a second, it's like, yeah, duh, of course, right? So here's the deal. If you will set yourself to the purpose of discovering what it is you are, however long it takes, whatever is needed in order for that to happen, everything will turn out right. The idea that your life, you are your life, will vanish over time. If you will just set yourself to the purpose of discovering what you are.
So that means an intention of some kind, right? Set
It means
yourself
an
to
intention.
the purpose means an intention.
But you have to
Or
see
just-
that that intention's already here. It's just being frittered away
It's being
by trying to
diverted
make
by
yourself
other
into
things,
something.
like trying to say, well, who am I by my fame? Who am I by my job? Who
By
am
my
I
actions, by my
actions?
relationships, by my thoughts. Yeah,
So now we just want to go direct.
That's
You know,
right.
Who am I before my thoughts, before my actions, before my relationships?
just who am I? What am
Who
I?
Just plain who am I, right?
Right, just that.
Unadorned.
Unadorned. And you will see, if you really take this to be a purpose, you will quickly see, or you may quickly see,
Well, it's relative. It'll be quicker than it's been.
take less time than it has already. That's
Yeah,
for sure.
right. That's for sure.
Well, that you're here. If you try to look to see what it is that you know for certain, there's not much that can possibly answer to that. You may think you know things for certain. I'm not speaking of you as, but maybe
We all
you.
think
What
we
do
know
I
things for certain, but then in
You
a
think
couple of
you know
years
for
we
certain,
think we know
but
something
what you
else.
knew for certain passes.
Right.
So if you look for what it is that you absolutely know for certain and reject the things that, as they come up, that are, you can tell what's bogus and what's not, what you come to is you are certain that you are. That you know. Is that not true? You know that you are. You know that.
I think
Nobody
that's true,
can talk you out of that.
No.
Now, I could talk you out of the idea that I am. That's possible to do. Because I am, after all, this phenomenon that's appearing in your mind, in your consciousness, my voice, my shape, my face, and all
You're
of that.
basically a sensation to me.
That's
you know?
right.
You're on my optic nerves,
That's
you're
right.
in my eardrums, and
That's right.
basically my body
That's right.
is
I could
sensing,
be anything. I could
you
be a
know,
dream,
and
an
maybe
illusion,
it
an hallucination.
electronically could stimulate these
That's right.
sensations or some other
But
way.
nothing, if you look at it, nothing can persuade you that you don't exist. Nothing. Nobody, nowhere, can persuade you that you are not. Why?
I didn't arrive at myself by any kind of logic or any kind of argument or any kind of things any words.
That's right.
I didn't arrive at myself by anything
right.
that somebody could possibly get, by any vehicle that another
That's right.
could transmit.
Now see that, and that's true what you're saying, but that also is commentary. It's a story being told about this certainty of being that is at the bottom of you, at the heart of you. You can say after apperceiving it that I am certain because I didn't arrive at it by thought and by this and that and the other thing, but you are certain. The certainty that you exist is here no matter what else is going on. Whether you know it's here or not, it's here. You know you're here. So the road to the truth of the reality of what you are is directly in the direction of that certainty. You want to look at this feeling, this underlying, unassailable conviction of your own existence. That's what you're looking for. That's what you are. And you want to do that as often as you can.
So you can't even say that it's a feeling, it's an emotion, it's a thought. It's like it contains everything, but it's none of these, you know. But it contains everything.
Yeah,
right?
it's you.
Contains.
It's you. That's right. And this you is nothing apart from this unspoken, silent certainty of being. And that, what I've just said, is a story about it. But you know it's here. You know you're here. You know it beyond any possibility of being dissuaded from it. Now, there's no need to understand all of that. The only requirement to be finished once and for all with the misery of human existence is to find the truth of what you are, and the truth of what you are is never absent. Never. So the medicine, the solution, is whenever it occurs to you to do so. It doesn't have anything to do with changing your thoughts about things or the way you look at things or relate to things or the basis for your belief about certain things and so forth. It doesn't have anything to do with any of that. It just has to do with, as often as possible, to, as we saw earlier, we can move our attention. We can't think a thought, but we can move our attention from thought to thought. So all that's required of you is to move your attention toward whatever it is that produces this unassailable conviction that you exist. That's what you're looking for, the source of that. And the really magnificent news about it is that just trying is enough. Really. Trying. The intention is everything. Just the determination in this moment to get a taste of this certainty of being is enough. It'll take you home. And that's a promise.
That's a huge breakthrough because, you know, I think we're all looking, you know, we're all misunderstanding and looking for some stupendous,
yes, we are.
Happening that's going to occur. And so then right now, at this moment, it seems so mundane, and we're just going to say, well, oh, we're missing it, you know, because it's supposed to, because we read in the traditions and stuff about these super awakenings and what they call, I don't know, samadhis or unification or insights or, but I mean, it's just not useful.
Samadhis come and go.
It's not useful.
Right? Samadhis come and go. That's what they do. A person goes into some samadhi state, it wasn't there before, and now it is there, and then the time comes when it's not there again. What samadhi states and non-samadhi states, confusion and clarity, ignorance and understanding all have in common is you. All of it has in common you. This underlying reality of you. And it's true that because you are permanent, because you've never changed, because you're exactly the same this moment as you were when you were 3 years old, you are ordinary. Absolutely. Fundamentally ordinary.
And what do you mean by that? Say,
I mean you're always here.
Always here.
You're never not here. What could be more ordinary than that?
Right. Usually when we say ordinary, we compare with other people. We're trying to compare outwardly.
That's right.
We're saying, well, if that guy's like that and I'm like that, well...
That's right. But you are the rock bottom baseline of ordinariness. You are that which never leaves, never moves, never changes, is unaffected by anything. That's you. So when we have in the past distorted the offering of these great beings and turned it into something that we can get to make our life better or bigger or, you know, sweeter or more ecstatically blissful or whatever, we miss the fact that if realization is an event that occurs to you, right, if it's something that wasn't here and then it is here, certainly there will come a time when it is not here again. If realization, if what you're hoping for and looking for is some spiritual lightning strike, then how can that be, since the essence of the spiritual insight is your eternity, your absolute permanence? If you can suddenly be here when you weren't here before, then what is this that's never moved? What are you? These things come and go. It's not to say they're bad or good, but just that they come and go. They are not real in the way you are. You are here permanently.
That's very helpful when you say, even when you just say they're not real in the way you are. Because before, when so many people say it's not real, and then somebody outside is saying, our viewers are saying, what are they talking about, not real, I mean, it's not that helpful. But when you say not real in the way you are, in other words, something contains that, something is
that's right.
bigger than that. And then you're actually telling us that you can get a taste of that.
Yes,
which
in
is
fact,
like that. That is the real key. That's
right.
the testimony that you're giving us.
That's right. And what I'm telling you, even more than that, is that you have never not had the taste of that.
Yeah.
The only thing that you can do, the whole purpose of, and let's introduce Ramana for a second here.
All right,
okay?
let's do it.
Ramana, and I talked about him a little bit in the last show that we did. He's this man in India who woke up, whatever that means, as a 16-year-old boy, and with no spiritual background, no teacher, no guru.
So that's beautiful too, because then he's ordinary, right?
He did it himself. He was ordinary and did it himself.
He didn't even do it, right? I mean, it was just like arising, because we were talking about doing before. And
well, what he did was, in the fear of death, he looked to find out what he was, which is what you can do. I mean, it doesn't take a saint to do that. Ramana wasn't a saint. But
do I have to have the fear of death too to go to do that?
You don't need fear of death.
You
got plenty.
I got plenty of fears.
You got plenty of fear. You don't need a fear of death. You don't.
So I could just look at who I am.
That's right. What am I? Really? What am I? As I sit here, if I am sitting here, what am I? Now, I want to tell you about Ramana a little bit. Ramana, after some years of running from us, and he really did. He ran and hid and wouldn't talk to us, and by us I mean humanity.
Right.
Somebody wrote to me recently and said, how could you have met Ramana?
Are you that old?
Are you that old? I'm talking about humanity. That's the us that I'm speaking of. He ran from us. And then there came a time when he settled down and allowed people to come to him, and he spoke to them. And he spoke to them as you would speak to them, not as a spiritual teacher. He had acquired really vast knowledge of spiritual writings and utterances and so forth, and saw them all to be wanting. He used his understanding of these things as a way of helping people who came to him who were caught in those realms, right? But he also found something that conformed to his own experience, which was a teaching from the ancient past called Atma Vichara, which is self-inquiry. And he turned it on its head. And what I mean by that is this. In the time of the Vedas, I don't want to get too spiritual, but in the time of the Vedas, in I guess 3,000 years ago, there came to be the view that, and this is a view that naturally would arise, as you can see once you hear it, there came to be a view that there was a true self and a false self, and that we were trapped in the false self, and that if we could somehow, and that the light and the truth of the true self was obscured and denied us by this whole cloud of ignorance and confusion and desire and aversion and all of that happens within the human mind, so that if we could somehow clear that up, that then the light of the true self could shine through and straighten everything out. All right? So the work of clearing things up so that the light of true self could shine through was called Atma Vichara, Atma's self, self-inquiry. And it took many forms. One of the forms was a form called not this, where you examined every phenomenon arising as it arose and said, is that me? And you would see that it isn't and discard it. The hope being that as you got rid of all the things you were not, the true self would be able to shine through. And
I wonder if that would work, because here we've been trying to discard so many behaviors and things of ourselves.
Yeah, it's been going on for a long time. It ain't worked for nobody.
They keep popping up. They keep popping back up, just
whack-a-mole, right?
Right.
Ramana took this idea of self-inquiry, Atma Vichara, and recognized it as what he had spontaneously entered into as a 16-year-old boy in the fear of death. It was the direct searching for the reality of what he was, of his nature. And it involved nothing whatsoever of true self and false self. It involved nothing other than me looking to see what I am. And that's what Ramana did in the heart of the fear of death. So Ramana took up this idea of Atma Vichara and began to teach it to everyone who came to him.
With this different slant on it.
Upside down.
Oh.
It's completely upside down. It has really no connection to the old Atma Vichara except the name.
So he just used it to attract all those people that were practicing it.
That's right. Practicing neti and all that other stuff.
Right.
Not to attract them, but to
just to straighten
get
them out
their
and help
attention.
them.
And when they came to him, he really wasn't interested in attracting anybody. I can't tell you with enough stress how much he really would have preferred that we'd left him alone. Really.
No.
So Ramana would tell people, quite simply, find out what you are. When anybody came to Ramana with a problem of any kind, his most common response was, for whom is this problem? The thing the thread that runs through everything you'll ever read about Ramana is this relentless, sometimes almost irritating adherence to the sense that there's nothing that's worthwhile doing except to find out what you are. First find out what you are, and then do all that other stuff.
And everything else flows.
Right. First find out what you are, then do all the other stuff. So I had the great good fortune to actually do what Ramana said to do in a time of my life when I was desperate to find something. I had become spiritual, which was really a terrible thing to have happened to me. I had big spiritual experiences. I woke up, I was enlightened, I self-realized, I had all of that happen to me. I had bliss, I had oceanic consciousness, I had the whole thing, all of which wasn't here one day, then it was here, and then it was gone, leaving me bereft and suffering more than ever before, because I felt like I had a taste of heaven and had it snatched away from me. And finally, in my desperation, I turned to the transcripts of Ramana's conversations with people. And I read that book all the time. And I was not very spiritually sophisticated, so I undertook the inquiry in a kind of immature and not very sophisticated manner, right? I mean, I took him at his word.
That means earnest.
That's right. He says, he has two lines of self-inquiry. And in one he says, look for ego. Look for this feeling that you are a human being, subject to the vicissitudes of human life. Find it and grab a hold of it. Hold on to it. Find out what it is. Find out from whence it comes. You will see that if you earnestly look at what you have believed yourself to be, you will find it to be nothing. And what remains when you find it to be nothing is what you are. And he would tell us, look for what you are. Are you not here?
I think that happens a little at a time, does it not? Because, I mean, it's just like...
yes, it does happen a little at a time.
It's like gradually I'm seeing things about my behavior, life, or circumstances, and I'm just taking them less and less seriously.
Right. All that
Just
Ramana
less and less
said,
believable.
That's right, all that Ramana said and all of the practices and the techniques that he offered us had one goal in mind, and that was that for, a second or so, you might get a true taste knowing it to be yourself every once in a while. The insight of Ramana that is so powerful and that wipes out all of the false expectations that haunt spiritual and religious life is that there's nothing spiritual about finding out what you are. That's not a spiritual endeavor. It's not a spiritual practice. It is absolutely practical. And so that it's not like, oh my God, I see, I am infinite consciousness, I am love without condition, I am finished now, I am alive and awake and saved forever. It's not like that. It's like every time you look at yourself, you eat away the belief that you are this life. Every time you look at yourself, you add to the destruction of that belief. You don't even see that belief. You don't even know it's here. But every time you see the truth, that belief gets weaker. And as it gets weaker, you will see for yourself that life reveals itself without changing at all, except as it does change, that life reveals itself to be not at all what you thought.
Maybe it's kind of a relaxing, because when you see that your life is not what you thought it was, then you don't have to manage it. So then, as you relax, then you're open to more.
That's right.
More of the flow of the world.
That's right, and then you can fall back into your life.
And you can handle your life just with more grace
with
and
no
more
separation from it.
Right, and just be in love with it.
That's it. And I talk often now. I've come up with two metaphors for the work of self-inquiry, and either of them work. One is the metaphor of self-inquiry as medicine. What I really want to do is I really want for people to get rid of the idea that there's something spiritual that you're looking for. You know, like the whole idea that you are your life is a spiritual belief. What I want to do is get rid of that idea that self-inquiry is one more spiritual or religious practice that is somehow going to save my life, going to fix my life, because it ain't that. It's like medicine. You have a disease. We all have a disease. And that disease is this false belief that I am my life.
What we call the momentum of the river of consciousness in the last show.
That's right.
Which is just huge, immense,
and
when you put it like that.
The disease is this core belief that that's me, and I am at stake in this. Now, the medicine is just look at yourself right now, and then again, and then again. If you have an infectious disease like the flu, or not the flu, but a cold or something, non-viral, if you have an infectious disease, you go to the doctor and he prescribes antibiotics. Now, you know you're sick, but you don't have any idea of what the forces are that are going into the producing of the fever and the headache and all of that stuff, right? You just know you're sick and you want to be better. So you go to a doctor and he gives you an antibiotic. Now you have no better idea what that antibiotic does when you take it than you do
what caused the thing in the first place.
What causes sickness in the first place. So you just take the antibiotic, you take it however many times a day you're told to, for however long you're told to, and after a little while you start realizing that you're feeling better. But you're told to keep taking the antibiotic anyway, And you do, you keep taking it, you don't know what's going on. You're just doing what you're told. And finally, in the end, the disease is gone. Life is sweet. Everything's cleared up again. You don't know now any more than you did then what the problem was, or exactly the mechanics and the particulars of how the medicine worked. Self-inquiry is like that. I tell you from my heart, I promise you, I swear to God, that if you will look for yourself every opportunity you can, whenever it occurs to you to do so, that's the medicine. And that medicine will cure the disease of the false belief about what you are before you even know it's gone.
So what the metaphor is about the medicine is that, first of all, let me see if I got this right. First of all, you don't understand what's caused the problem in the first place, and you don't understand what this so-called medicine is doing.
Right.
Number one.
Right.
Number two, there's a course of it.
Number two, you don't need to.
Yeah, you don't need to. Yeah,
Right.
you don't understand, and that's not part of the treatment.
Right.
You know. And the other part is that there's a course. You know, you got to stay the course, because it's not like you can say, "Oh, I feel better today. That's it. I'm
That's
finished
right.
with that."
That's
so
right.
then you just keep taking this, and what it is like finding what it is about yourself that makes you certain that you are.
That's it. You just do that, and everything will turn out right. When I was reading Ramana, when I was in the heart of hell, it seemed like every other paragraph or every other speech that he made, he would end, and everything will turn out right in the end. And I thought, man,
Oh my God,
quit
he doesn't
saying
know
that.
about
I'm
this,
really
you know.
tired.
He hasn't met my mother-in-law, right?
Yeah, right. But it's true. If you take the medicine, if you do the inquiry, and the other magnificent thing about this, the offering of this technique, is that nobody is asking you to do something nobody's asking you to do something like give up your firstborn child, or move to a commune, or move to an ashram, or give all your money to...
Basically, life goes on. In other words, you don't. Shouldn't interfere with your job.
They're not asking
and
you
with
to
your
give up your job. It doesn't
relationships
interfere with anything.
and with
just-
your struggles. Even it doesn't necessarily
That's
interfere.
right.
But
No,
just
you just
slowly,
keep the struggle up.
Keep struggling.
Don't matter.
Yeah.
Can't hurt you.
Yeah. Right.
Nothing can hurt you.
So there's no counter indications, you know, that
Right.
because it's like there's no side effects, right?
Right,
It's not going to
'cause-
wreck your job or not
Right.
going to.
And if you look at what I'm asking you to do, it's really clear that, well, this can't hurt me.
Yeah.
I mean, he's not asking me to do anything that can possibly hurt me. I'm
Don't even
asking
have
you
to change
look
the
at
color of your
yourself.
clothes.
No,
or
you don't do
wreck
nothing.
your wardrobe or nothing. You know, be zero.
The other metaphor that I've come to use a little bit about self-inquiry, again, because please, there's nothing spiritual about self-inquiry. There's nothing spiritual about you, really. The other metaphor that I've started to use is termites.
Oh boy.
Self-inquiry is like termites. You know, there's this whole structure of your life, of what you think you are, and all of the ways in which you have to shore up your belief that that is your life.
All
right?
the foundation of your
the
beliefs.
whole architectural basis of it, right? If you look for yourself as often as you can, whenever it occurs to you to do so. It's like these termites. They're in the structure. Now, if the termites were in this building, you wouldn't know it.
No.
I mean, the only way you'd know it is if you got some expert to come out and find whatever it is they find, but you wouldn't know there were termites in the building until the building fell down. It's the same with self-inquiry. If you do the self-inquiry, it's like there's termites in the structure of this false belief about what you are. And they will eat up the structure, and it will vanish before you know it's gone.
Wow.
So, practical. Self-inquiry is practical. It's not spiritual. It's the only thing you can do to be finished with the unsatisfactoriness of being human.
This inquiry, though, it's some kind of tasting, because so many times when we talk about inquiry, we think we're searching for an answer. If we say, "Who am I?" then somehow an answer's got to pop up. But that's
Right, no,
not
it's
it
not
at all.
that.
That's not it at all, right?
The impulse will arise, and it's not uncommon to follow it as if it were that. But the amazing thing about the inquiry is, no, it has nothing to do with describing yourself or naming yourself. Like all of the sutras and shastras and hymns and psalms and all of those things are spiritual utterances that spontaneously have arisen to tell a story about you, to describe you. None of that's of any use to you at all, except, they're kind of, they feel good.
Well, they brought me to where I am right now, see? So, I mean, I don't know whether that was useful or not.
Naming you is not the point. Describing you is not the point. Your whole life has been a failed attempt to describe you. You hear that? That's what your life is, a failed attempt to describe you. That's what this whole cosmos is, a failed attempt to describe you. So the inquiry...
It must be a failed attempt because I keep trying.
That's right.
I'm keeping
That's
trying.
right.
So,
That's
I mean,
right.
it wasn't, whatever I had, the great attempt to describe myself wasn't good enough.
Wasn't good enough.
Because I'm after
Otherwise
it
you wouldn't
again.
be doing it
I'm
anymore,
after
would
it
you?
again today.
So it's none of that. It is like medicine. Like when you take the antibiotic, you just feel the capsule go down your throat. That's all there is to taking the antibiotic. It's the same with self-inquiry. When you do the self-inquiry, all there is this sense, I'm here. I'm here. Am I not? I'm here. And even that's saying way too much. I am.
Maybe it's really subtle because, this is what crossed my mind, because before we talked about, are you thinking a thought or is it just arising? So are you doing the self-inquiry or is it just arising?
That's irrelevant.
So it's arising, let's say,
Yeah.
and the thing is just let it be, savor it,
Yeah.
just stay with it.
It's really important that you take it as your intention to find out the truth of what you are. Not to succumb to spiritual stories about, it's just happening on its own. After all, I am not able to do anything on my own. It may be that that's true, but that's of no use to you. It's just a way of going back to sleep into the belief that you are your life. Everything's being taken care of, all of which is true. I mean, whether you look for yourself or don't look for yourself, here you are. Nothing changed. But if you truly want this life, to see this life in its reality, if you truly want to see what life is in its reality, then you must take it as your intention to find out what you are. It has to be you that's doing it. And you can see how easy it is with spiritual understanding to deflect the importance of your intention. If you're sick and you're given medicine, you have to take the medicine. It's of no use to you to say, oh well, if I am to have the medicine will come to me. If I am to be free to this disease, then somehow the medicine will come into my mouth and enter my system.
That makes me think of something else too, in a way, because we're saying, okay, I'm not going to take the medicine. Okay, I read a book. So I know someone that took the medicine. I read it. And
Right.
he got well,
Right.
realized himself. So that's enough. And if I get enough of those stories behind me,
Right.
like I accumulate all this knowledge of who wrote these authors and that they took the medicine, and I'm still not taking mine.
That's right.
I'm
And
not
you're- That's
touching
right.
it. I'm not touching reality. I'm not seeing who I am. I'm not inquiring. Inquiring is kind of like an active verb, but it just means I'm not noticing.
It's an
let's
action.
say.
It really doesn't matter whether you take the action or not, whether you take the medicine or not. It really doesn't matter whether this life plays out in the false belief that it's you. It really doesn't matter whether that happens or not. It doesn't touch you. It doesn't change you. And you know that. Nothing has ever changed you. You are the same. When all of the story is gone, you remain the same. Diamond. Unmoving, unscratched, untouched. The practice of self-inquiry is offered to those for whom in this life has appeared the strong desire to be finished with being stuck in a life that sucks. Which I think is probably everybody. But what do I know?
Well, it's all in how you define it in a way. Okay, life goes up and down, and you might realize that sucks, or you might just say, well, life goes up and down, and I'm riding the up, so I'll just stay there. Or you might just not want to say life sucks, because you might just say whatever the word, because the Bible said first there was the word and then there was the reality, and so you'll say, oh, I'm afraid that if I say the word, so then that repels a lot of people. But just, I think, from this kind of idea, because they just, for those various reasons, feel like...
Listen, if you're happy with your life, then be happy with your life.
Right.
If you're really happy with your life, then there's no need for you to do anything.
Absolutely.
If you're not happy, then find out who's not happy. Right. It's really that simple.
I just feel like, if we state this in a way that causes misunderstanding, well then, why do it?
Richard, for 8 years now, I have been trying to state this in a way that causes no misunderstanding.
Or less misunderstanding, let's say.
And I've failed spectacularly.
Most of the value that you've given to me is like you've showed me that the things that I was so solid with are just vapor. That's not it. And I was just so sure that I had an understanding, and that you'd taken away things and dissolved things.
Okay, so now those things are gone, right? But you remain.
And I remain.
Have you changed? The life is different, right? Some ideas and concerns and so forth have vanished. The life has changed.
They're weaker, those concerns, maybe they're
right.
come in as shadows and go out,
Right.
And the life, in a way, is very, very similar, but I'm so much more open to new things.
Are you?
Well, it seems like it. Because, here I am
look and see.
In a TV show. I never
Look
would
and
have
see.
even dreamed
just
of that.
Just for a second.
Well, my circumstances.
Yeah, circumstances
have
changed, but
immensely. My
right.
circumstances.
And this is critical. Your circumstances have changed immensely. Your life has changed immensely. But have you?
I can't say.
That's what it all comes back to. And I tell you from my heart that the reason that these false ideas have weakened in your life, the reason that things have relaxed and changed like that in your circumstances, is because what has really weakened over time is the belief that that's you.
My foundation is full of termites.
That's right. That's what's really weakened, full of termites.
Holy termites, making their holes, right?
That's right.
That's a good analogy.
So,
well, what happens when it crashes, though? Is that kind of...
When what crashes?
This structure. You said the termites
you don't even know it's crashed.
You're not even going to know it, huh? Just kind of, they're taking it from the top down instead of from the bottom up.
It just vanishes. You see, it's not holding anything up other than false ideas.
So they can't hit very hard.
No. How's a false idea going to crash? Where's it going to crash to?
You're absolutely right, because the moment you see it, that's it. There's nothing to do with it. The moment you see it's just false. There's no reason to entertain it. There's no reason to regret it.
That's right.
There's no reason to try to do anything.
That's right.
There's no reason to even bury it.
That's right. Right.
What the heck? Just the scene is the healing, or is the freeing. The scene is the freeing.
You have to find out what you are. Nothing else will do.
And you have to do it.
You have to do it.
No author can.
Nobody can give it to you.
Give it to you. Nobody can take it away.
Nobody can take it away from you. Nobody can give it to you. And all of the fine words that are written and spoken about you are of no use to you. The only words that are written and spoken about you that are of any use to you is, what are you, Richard? Who are you, Richard? Really. All the rest of it just adds to the story.
And the story is just a division, because whatever I read or whatever I get out of the tradition, and I see that I juxtapose myself on there and say, oh, I'm supposed to be over there. And that just one more thing for me to do, and one more regret to have, and one more...
It's bound to be a regret since you can't move anywhere.
Boy, we've been really on a false trail, you know. Trying to move the immovable.
And none of that, here's the astounding thing, none of that has to be done away with. None of it. The false ideas, the clinging to false ideas, all of that, none of that touches you in the least. None of that changes what you are in the least. Not at all. All you have to do is look for the truth of what you are. And the rest of it's all taken care of.
God, you could just relax with that. You could just feel like, hey, I could do that. I could do that.
You could do that. That's right.
You know, because all the other, the practice and stuff, I think, oh, I can't do that. I mean, that is really hard.
Yeah.
First of all, you got to be strong. Second of all, you got to change your life. Third of all, you got to move, into a cave or whatever.
Yeah, right. But this you can do.
Yeah.
You can do this driving on the freeway. Standing in the grocery store.
Everywhere else, right?
Sitting here, speaking to you. You can look.
I've been doing it enough.
What am I?
Well, this has really been some great hints, some great pointing. And I think we've eaten another show up.
Okay.
Pretty soon, we've got a minute or something. But I think I feel where you're coming from, because I want to tell everybody. I know you want to tell everyone for 8 years.
When the false belief that you are your life dissolves, you see that you are everything.
So then I just want to tell myself, right?
Why wouldn't you? Yeah.
Why wouldn't I? I want to tell my little fingers and tell my hands and tell my toes and.
Right. Okay.
Right.
Okay.
We thank our viewers for being with us. We're with John Sherman. He came in from Ojai, California, and we're honored to have you as a guest. And so I've actually been waiting for you for quite a long time, because ever since I thought of the show's name, Never Not Here, you're the first person on my mind.
I love that name.
It's yours.
Yeah, I love that name.
So we'll be around in the coming weeks. Check our show out, and we're on every week. And so we're having some interesting conversations about really who it is that is having this conversation, who we are. And if we don't want to find that out, I mean, should be number one. So thanks for coming, and we'll see you next time.
Your beloved calls you here today to ask you for this dance.